This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And we are just about there, like right on the edge of diving right into 2025. NBA is certainly the gift that keeps on giving well beyond Christmas. But as always, man, when you cannot physically give a gift to your peoples, you can always virtually give hugs and love wherever they are. So I'm giving virtual hugs and love to my brother from another mother, my man, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. What's good, Shaw? Has the Christmas holidays been kind to you?
Always. And shout out to you and yours, and shout out to all the friends and family and all listeners of the Baseline NBA podcast. I hope you've enjoyed and had a happy holiday season. Happy New Year if you're listening to us, right around that time as well. It's been a great time. And the NBA, as you always say, it is a gift that keeps on giving. So no shortage of content yet again here as we dive into 2025. I'm looking forward to this week's segment yet again. We've been having a lot of fun to kind of close out the year, doing things a little bit differently, but hopefully our fans and listeners are enjoying it, man.
Yeah. I was really curious, Shaw, what your overall assessment was regarding the NBA Christmas games, or, the NBA Christmas Day games, right? Because we got to make sure we say it properly. And I was tickled a little bit. I don't tickle easy, lies. But I was tickled by the comment that LeBron James made at the end of that game between the Warriors and the Lakers, where he's like, NFL, I love you. I love watching NFL, but Christmas Day is for the NBA. You know what I'm saying? This is our thing, right? And I wanted to get your take when you hear arguably the face of the NBA, come out and make a statement like that.
Yeah, I love the fact that he did, to be honest with you, although it's not true by the ratings and by the viewers. While they said the Christmas Day games were up, and that's great. And I think we're going to see the league do a lot of stuff to kind of promote that. I got an email today from the league as well, too, talking about ratings, and especially the late night Christmas Day game being the highest late night Christmas Day game. It's like, see what I mean? How you can always make a numbers kind of shift towards your favor. But the fact remains, I think the NFL quintupled the actual viewership. I think it was like 25.7 million viewers or something like that tuned into the NFL games. So while LeBron, the face of the league, truly is trying to reclaim and put the proverbial stamp down for the NBA, you want them to say those types of things. But honestly, as much as big as we're NBA fans, it's an NBA podcast, but this is not a war the NBA can seem to really win here. If the NFL is going to come for those national holidays and extend their season now, maybe even to deeper into February, with the playoffs and Super Bowl, it's going to be tough sledding ahead for the league when it comes to viewership.
It's going to be tough sledding. I agree. But I also agree, as well as what you were saying, it is good to hear from a guy like LeBron James to speak on that. I think that's part of what's been missing, right? Is where is that bravado? Where is that swagger? It always just kind of seems to find itself in like little nooks, little bits, right? Mm-hmm. But not as a whole, not, collectively, and maybe that's something that the NBA, certainly has to work on more. Listen, there were some really good games, for what it's worth. There were some good games. And listen, we could talk about the timing, the late game, being if you live in the West Coast and everything like that, but that doesn't take away from the same effect when you're seeing a West Coast NFL game being played, right? I just think it's the way that they present that game, how they embrace the idea and the concept. And I'll say this, I don't want to sound disrespectful, because again, I appreciate that ESPN is one of the foundations to have helped launched this initiative to have the NBA full slated games on Christmas, right? Like we would have been starving for some kind of sports in the midst of it. I would probably start watching hockey if I felt it was compelling enough for me and it was all that was available on Christmas. But I feel like the networks have taken a step back in how they're presenting the game and what it should mean and to attract those audiences and stuff. I think it's cute they do the little things with Disney, having the animated version of it and stuff like that. But I think that there could be different directions that the networks can take to help promote that more. And I think that I just wanted to make sure that we took a little bit of time to, one, acknowledge it was great. We had some great games. Hopefully people were, followed it and captured it. But there's also still that acknowledgement into what you brought the point up is the NBA has left the door open for other sports genres to kind of come in there and, touch them up a little bit and shake up, what was arguably, or not even arguably, their day. And I think now we're beginning to see signs of that, regardless of how big the contract it's going to be moving forward. The NBA has to be mindful about how it's presenting, these featured days and games and things of that nature, if not to just elevate rather than just sustaining on the idea that this is that time of the year that people are transitioning off of football going to basketball.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ideas. Maybe there could be a couple less games for Christmas specifically. As you're talking, I'm thinking about ideas, later into the season. Maybe West Coast games don't start at 7:30, 8 o'clock on the weekends, if nothing else, because that's what the NFL has the advantage on, like mostly weekend games. And while even if it is a weekday game, it starts at 7 o'clock, no matter who's playing. So there are things that I think the league can do to try to maybe attract more viewership, because some people are like, listen, I'm not staying up till 10. If I'm on the East Coast, that is, I'm not staying up till 10 o'clock. West Coast folks are like, well, what difference does it make? Like, they get the best of both worlds. But there are machinations now, but at the same time, the NBA's got to be very careful about not being too kitschy. You know what I mean? And just trying to do everything to be too cute to try to catch every little aspect of viewership they possibly can. But as you alluded to, again, the games themselves were good. I would probably be a proponent of a flex schedule. We're seeing them being able to do that right now, right? And this is something that you've been saying for years. But the NBA Cup, it stalls the schedule for a week or so until they know, okay, who's going to be in the semifinals or whatever. So to me, it's like, well, you could probably do that. So, all right, well, what are the best matchups now for Christmas Day? They ended up getting a little lucky this year, right? They did. They got lucky, and Embiid and Paul George played, and the Sixers beat the Celtics, and Warriors, Lakers was really good. Curry and LeBron both healthy. All those things kind of really, really worked itself out. But we have had some years where they've been some duds and some less than teams there. So I think they need to just kind of, have all the bullets in their chamber, when these types of things are available to them, to kind of make sure they can try to put out the best product as possible. But it was a successful Christmas Day. Shout out to the NBA, despite the NFL and the Beyonce Bowl and everything else that was coming for those ratings on December 25th.
Oh, absolutely. Callie Warrenshaw, Baseline NBA podcast. And as always, man, we appreciate everybody hopping on board with us this week. Be sure to get my man Shaw, Astro Sports NBA, or get at me at Game Face Lead. The show's Twitter handle, NBA Baseline, available on all the major platforms. You can go to www.thebaselineNBA.com to not only check out this episode, but also all of the episodes that we roll out for your listening pleasure. And if you see us on the blue and white logo, catching us on the YouTube channel, then you know that we rocks with the 19 Media Group family. 19 Media Group, we running these content streets. So go to www.19mediagroup.com. And before I obviously forget and we get into the logistics of our episode, we just want to make sure that everybody is fully aware that the Baseline NBA podcast is proud to announce that we've been nominated for Best Basketball Podcast for the second consecutive year by the Sports Podcast Awards. We are honored to be recognized among such talented podcasts and are grateful for the continued support. And as always, man, we were looking to take home the trophy. We missed out last year. You know what I mean? Shout outs to Draymond and Old Man in the Three podcast and the plethora of other podcasts that were nominated that got in our way. But we will not let anyone get in our way this time. And we know that because we know that our listeners want us to take the trophy. So in order to do that, we encourage you to go to https:/baseline2025. Once again, tinyurl.com/baseline2025. So you can cast your vote for the Baseline as the best basketball podcast nominated by the Sports Podcast Awards. Every vote matters. We know that you do, because without you, there's no us. And so we always encourage our listeners to go and vote, no matter if it's us or anyone else. But obviously, we're preferential. We want you to vote for us. So be sure to go to the website, put a vote in, lock us in, man, so that we can take home the trophy for 2025. All right, y'all. We got a nice little episode going up, right? Just as we're hitting that 2025, about the ball drops and everything like that. But some teams, they let a whole lot more drop. Okay. There's some news and notes that we got to get into. Obviously, the dismissal of Mike Brown by the Kings. We'll also talk about the Lakers trade, and then also a key injury that's taking place for one of the premier teams that's out there in the Western Conference, and what that impact is going to be like. And then as we get a little bit later on to the episode, we got our coveted New Year's resolution. So Shaw and I will find a team within each of the divisions, and we will provide them with resolutions that a resolution that they could utilize for their 2025. So not that they probably haven't thought about it, but we are going to be proactive. We want to make sure that going into 2025, they have a resolution for how they can turn things around, be better, so that they can continue to produce a great product for the NBA. So before we get started, also, you got to know, Prize Picks is back, baby. Prize Picks is truly the best way to win real money, with all the various opportunities to play and collect your winnings. Shaw and I are hoop heads with different strategies. I like defense, so maybe I'll take Wemby to get more than 2 blocks. Shaw's an offensive kind of guy, so he may pick Tatum to score more than 25 points. That's easy pickings for him. But did you know that you can mix and match your playing strategies based on personal preferences due to the enormous selection of players and stat types available? And for those who like a quick win, Prize Picks is the way to go. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. So what are you waiting for? Download the app today and use CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Remember, with Prize Picks, it's as simple as picking more or picking less. Again, the promo is CLNS to get $50 after you play your first $5 lineup. The baseline is rocking with Prize Picks, and you should too. Prize Picks, run your game. More baseline, Cal Lee Warren Shaw. Don't go anywhere. Time now for news and notes. Cal Lee Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast. So Shaw, I don't know whether or not this is considered a big trade. I know a lot of people have made a big deal about the fact that LeBron just turned 40, and he's obviously in, win now mode. But the recent trade moving D'Angelo Russell and Maxwell Lewis and 3 second-round picks to the Nets in exchange for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. I don't know, man. Does that really move the needle? Does that really speak and resonate to LeBron's win now mentality?
A lot of people are just happy to get D'Angelo off the roster, and get a guy like
probably LeBron.
Whoever, but every Laker person I've spoken to in the time that it's happened is just been like, oh, we're so happy he's gone for whatever the reason, and that makes me know never mind. Interesting though, odds have not moved one iota. They're the exact same odds in terms of those people who set the betting trends, if you will. But the Lakers faithful seem to think, that this is a move that's going to set up the next move. So it's a move to the move. And it's still, they remain flexible to try to do something else here, and whatever that may be. I don't think Lakers fans really think another star of some sort is coming here while they are sniffing around the De'Aaron Fox situation in Sacramento, which we'll get to here in a little bit. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think it's going to be, maybe a high level role player. Maybe they get a Valanciunas from Washington or somebody like that to kind of come over. But this Lakers team, moving on from D'Angelo Russell, and he's I'll just talk about this one real quickly. There is no better empty calories type of player than D'Angelo Russell to go back to this Brooklyn situation. He will be thriving. It's a place he did well in. He got them to a level of competitiveness. So I think it's a great win for him. And what he's trying to do statistically, he's already got his contract, whatever, kind of in place. But ultimately, the Lakers, get some flexibility and feel like they got some defense here in DFS.
Yeah, so D'Angelo Russell goes back to Brooklyn, right? Maybe too little, too late. You know what I'm saying? You can't get back Kenny Atkinson. But he definitely, to your point, has opportunity for him to go up and, throw up some numbers so he can get himself one last good quality contract But that being said, doesn't it kind of make you wonder, like if you were the Los Angeles Lakers and there was rumors about you trying to make a play for Dejounte Murray, you were trying to make a play for Trae Young, you were trying to make a play for anybody, arguably to help bolster your backcourt, and you never pulled a trigger or attempted, or maybe you attempted, but whatever it is, whatever you were attempting to give just clearly was not competitive enough to what other teams were looking at. And now you're back at this very same space. You're back at this very same spot. And while to your point, I'm not looking at anything about Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton, I think what it just kind of speaks to me is it's like, again, why continue to operate in this space that you are if you're the Lakers? If you're gonna do it, man, just go all out and do it. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know if whether or not kind of like nickel diming, you know what I'm saying, these moves to get to a greater package, I think you will run out of time before you actually are in a position to make the kind of play that you want to get who you're looking for, you know. And then with that being said, Shaw, I think the other thing as well too is just like this: what else is out there? You know what I'm saying? Like most of the players that you think that you know everyone thinks that Lakers are in some kind of position or primed to get or whatever the case may be. I don't really think they're even close. I don't even think they're close. I don't think any teams is really warming up to the idea of trying to do any kind of deals or trades with the Lakers, whatever. They're just like, yo, you suffer like us right now because we're having a hard enough time trying to figure out what we got within ourselves. No reason for us to give you somebody that we're still unsure about that then suddenly now finds their niche being a Laker playing next to LeBron James. I do think that they're just genuinely some organizations and teams that genuinely feel that kind of way about whether or not they should pull the trigger and make a deal, even if it's at the expense of keeping a player that maybe that they shouldn't be keeping, but certainly not to send them to the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they have a lot of love around the proverbial league, and people aren't lining up to help LeBron James. And if they are able to find a trade partner that gets them a bigger fish on the proverbial line, I just don't see a path to that, I think, right now, personally, as you're alluding to with many, many teams out there. Even if a guy like De'Aaron Fox asks for a trade and says he wants to go there, why in God's green earth would Sacramento want to help them, especially if they're not going to come off of some of the Laker assets, not even just that coveted first round pick that they seem to be hyping up in some sort of fashion, but Austin Reeves has to go out. Like, you're not going to trade AD. We understand that. You're not going to trade LeBron. So Reeves is the next, AKA or air quote, valuable piece. And all this, like, they want to get and not give stuff doesn't make sense. It's the same thing that we've talked about with Golden State. Wow, they didn't want to give a Kuminga. They didn't want to give a Moody. Like, it has to be somewhat equitable. So I don't know that that's out there in terms of a big splash, but let's see how the Shake Milton and Dorian Finney-Smith thing works out. I think Shake Milton is an underrated player, and he can go in there and help them and lift them in terms of scoring and do some secondary playmaking as well. So we'll see what Pelinka has up his sleeve, but I'm dubious at best on the prospect of them getting another star here this season.
Oh, by the way, I think the other reason why is maybe the Nets have kind of given up on the idea of the Ben Simmons project, going back to him being the point forward. Yeah, like we'll give you back the reins, D'Angelo here. Like we'll take your pace over Ben Simmons' pace. Okay,
yeah, they're like former high school teammates or AAU teammates, something like that too. So we'll see what's going on out there in Brooklyn, man. Jordy continuing to have an interesting first ride here in his first couple of months as an NBA coach.
I tell you. Never, yeah, right. The gift that keeps on giving over there. All right, y'all. So let's kind of focus our attention on the big news, and that's the firing of Mike Brown by the Sacramento Kings. And let's quickly first go over on the player side of things. What does this impact say, or what does this move say to the players? What does this say about the what was probably happening within the locker room? What is that speaking to on that particular level? Because I know we're going to talk a little bit about the impact that it's had in the overall NBA community, and a lot of it, being screamed from the rooftop by the community of the coaches community, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not on board with what happened and how that was handled. But I want to kind of delve quickly into what this means for the players.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the players like Fox, Sabonis, even DeRozan to a lesser degree, just getting there, he's probably the guy I'd be most interested in kind of learning from, just to see, all right, well, what did he expect and what has he experienced in the time there? And because he hasn't played well, right? And does he attribute that to the play calling? Does he attribute that to Coach Brown specifically, or him trying to just fit in with a new team and new roster and understanding his role? Fox and Sabonis specifically are saying they weren't consulted, and again, there's all whatever rumors you want to believe about some fraying, if you will, between Fox and Brown specifically. But the coaching carousel continues to be an interesting and rough ride for guys. And this guy, think about it, was the coach of the year 2 years ago, led them to the playoffs for the first time in X amount of years. And now,
and let's just call it what it is, man. NBA coach of the year don't mean jack. Okay. Like it means absolutely nothing. And look, if you own a team, you run that team how you see fit. It's your team. I get it. But damn, guy goes out there and he literally gets your team, because now people are going to look at this and say he got your team to overachieve, right? Because if this is the best that your team looks like now, they're moving forward, right?
Yeah.
Clearly, being coach of the year means nothing, which I think is disheartening. It really puts things in a very awkward situation, tenuous at best. Like if you're someone who's trying to apply for a position to head coach, you don't even want to put the fact that you're a former coach of the year candidate, you got coach of the year votes. That almost seems like it's accelerating your timetable for you to be successful. Like
it adds pressure. It does add pressure. So the fact that they regressed, technically speaking, after that, what were they, the 3 seed 2 years ago? Then they made the play-in and didn't quite get into the playoffs last year, and now they're floundering, below 500. After adding DeRozan, the piece that they thought was going to be accelerant to what they were doing. A lot of it, I think, is the stunting of like Keegan Murray hasn't really taken off in the way that they thought.
But I think that is because of DeMar DeRozan. I'm not blaming him. What I'm saying is maybe in the organization's mind, they thought that this was going to be a great opportunity, a great deal. But again, when Coach Brown took this team, he took these guys who are already losing and showed them how to win basketball games as they were getting better. Now, they just weren't good enough to beat the better teams. Let's remember what dynamic they were in the Western Conference, right? There were more veteran teams, and younger teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves were kind of like on their same ilk. You know what I'm saying? Now they're expected to be able to beat these other teams, right? Compete with these other teams. And maybe that doesn't happen, but it doesn't help when you change the dynamic of your starting lineup by putting in a veteran guy, a guy who's going to arguably be going to the Hall of Fame at some point when he walks away from this. And you're saying, oh, we're going to have you just kind of be on the court, right? We can't feed you the basketball, when that's never been De'Aaron Fox's strong suit. He's the one that his explosiveness, his ability to get to the basket, his ability to have the basketball in his hands makes the guys like Keegan Murray and Sabonis better. But now you ask him to prioritize putting DeMar DeRozan in that mix. I just didn't see where that was going to all be beneficial for all parties. You know what I'm saying? And it even be sustainable, to be honest with you. That's just me.
Well, they've struggled, right? Fox struggled to begin the year. DeRozan was playing a little bit better. Then as Fox got hot, DeRozan was like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself. And so, in the midst of all that is Keegan Murray and Kevin Huerter and guys like that, Malik Monk coming from off the bench to being a starter because they need more shooting in the lineup. It's been a comedy of errors. I still feel like Mike Brown deserved more time to see this through, to work through it.
Absolutely. It's not like he lost like 30 games in a row.
Yeah. So I don't know, but it speaks more to the organization itself. And I think that's what, to your earlier point, that's the outcrying of emotion and support for Brown that's coming from the coaching community, because the Sacramento organization has not done a great job cultivating its own talent, and least of all its own coaches, especially a guy like that who brought you to playoffs for the first time in forever. It sends a bad message, and whoever is the next head coach there, if Doug Christie does not remain as interim and ultimately takes that lead role, that they're going to have to be in their P's and Q's and kind of always have one eye open and looking over their shoulder with that organization, the way that they lead that team.
You remember there was a time, right? We were fortunate to have the opportunity of Bobby Jackson, coming on and
Sure.
talking with us. And at the time, he was an assistant coach for the Sacramento Kings. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And I wonder what he would be saying right now, given what's happening, because he's off doing obviously continuing his career, but clearly he believes that he's in a much better situation, in a better place, and I don't think that is, you know, pie in the sky. I don't think that that's just not out of anywhere. I think as you begin to see how things are operating from within the circle, you begin to wonder where you fit in the grand scheme of things, and whether or not there is a future for you. And I think that speaks a lot. It's one thing when coaches are, from like the Mike Malones and the Steve Kerrs and things of course, their voices resonate because they're veteran coaches. They've been with their organizations for a long time. They've done a lot to establish a rapport with the organizations and the executives to allow them to have this platform. So if they come out and they speak on certain things, they're not going to come out and chew out Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr's got cachet. Mike Malone's got cachet. They can speak to these things, right? Because they've been around that whole bin, especially Steve Kerr, because he formerly was a general manager, right? I think when they speak to it, it has something that, it actually captures, people's attention. They make them realize, oh, they're coming from a space of, I know how they're speaking to what this organization probably is saying, thinking, and doing. But at the end of the day, how it's handled says more about what they think of their personnel, the people that they're hiring, when they choose to let those people go. And that, to me, I think more than anything, if you're a player, back to the point of the players, you got to look at this. You got to be like, man, do I want to be a part of that? Like, do I see myself being happy regardless? Like, I go out there and I bust my behind, and regardless of whether or not I'm good with this head coach or not, how you treat him, to me, opens the door to say anybody could be treated that way. And I don't know if whether or not that's the kind of message that you want, what I'm saying, permeating through the locker rooms all the way to the fans, whether they liked or didn't like Coach Brown. I'm sure all of them feel like that wasn't handled right. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think the fans themselves, smart ones at least, believe that Brown is truly at fault. They may not have loved all of his schemes, but the players did not perform, right? And a lot of viral clips are coming up now. Obviously, a lot of support for Brown specifically, but even one in Ty Lue last year, on the shop talking about, yeah, it's always our fault. When they win, it's the players. But when we lose, it's always us. Never mind that player went out there and had 5-7 turnovers or whatever. Like, I'm not out there, you know what I mean, passing the ball into the stands. And I think a lot of the Kings players need to take accountability here, whether they want to admit it or not. They are just as much at fault for this poor start here. And so we'll see what Doug Christie is able to do. Have to give him, I guess, 5 to 10 games to kind of see what types of changes he makes. But if it's more of the same, it will be pretty clear that, Brown wasn't the problem here, and it's more of a player situation. And we got to watch what ends up happening with De'Aaron Fox, because he still has a contract that has yet to been offered and or signed. And if he does ask out, that's going to change the trajectory of this team, and probably not for the good. But this flip side of that is, do you believe De'Aaron Fox is a guy you build around, right? Or the Kings just always going to be a nice story with good all-star level type players, but not franchise type players. And I think that's the big question that we're probably asking ourselves with both Fox and Sabonis, even to a lesser degree.
Yeah, no, man, it now opens up, Pandora's box on, what we may want to perceive about the Sacramento Kings. And like to what we were saying before, I think now we have accelerated a window of tolerance of what's taking place over there, right? Like, this is a few years now we've actually spoken about the Sacramento Kings as a successful basketball organization, right? When was the last time we actually did that? It's been a long time, man. It's been close to back to the early 2000s that we were doing that with the Sacramento Kings. And I think, Shaw, this is my final point about this, and then we'll move it forward. This is, you and I, we do these, we've been doing these shows for so long and stuff. My biggest pet peeve is when I see organizations cut their legs from below their knees without even learning to walk yet, right? Like these organizations swear up and down that they instantly think that they're championship caliber, championship medal, they have this long history of being successful and championship worthy when they've only been successful maybe a couple of years. They, you know what I'm saying? They're trying to walk and they haven't even crawled yet. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get a couple of successful seasons under your belt. Get you a couple of runs in the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? Put yourself in a position where there's something sustainable with this. Because then when you actually roll the dice, when you actually push your chips all in, if it doesn't succeed, that's it. You're back to the drawing board. And for some of these organizations, that's another 10, 15 years before you actually sniff above 500 records, sniff, a proverbial generational talent, sniff, you know what I'm saying? Being worthy, mentioned, even being in consideration. Like, literally, it's to the point where the NBA might give you an all-star weekend out of pity because you ain't making the kind of money that the other small markets are probably making, simply because as an organization, you rushed through the process of learning how to be successful and sustainably successful.
Yeah, I know no further points, no notes, man. I think the Kings are an organization that they have to get it together. They've got to figure out now, what are their next steps that doesn't step them off the proverbial cliff and back into oblivion. Because you can't go another 15, 20 years without visiting the playoffs, even especially in the new way of the play-in format. Like, you just look
It's
even
laid
crazier
out there
with that.
for you. It's like literally laid out there, laid out there for you. Like, they're gifting the Sacramento Kings an opportunity to be a part of the playoff conversation, to be a part of the April conversation for the next however many years. And yet they continue to find ways to undermine that. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Final news and notes, Shaw. Luka Doncic is going to be out for a month. Dallas Mavericks, where are you with it? Is it the worst thing in the world? Could it be the best thing in the world for them? What say you?
Yeah, with Dallas, they need their bodies, right? And so while they've looked like a good team so far for portions of this year, and then they look like, oh, what happened? It's not the same team that was in the finals. They weren't playing the same level of defense. Big scuffle, the other night with Najee Marshall, and Nurkic and stuff. Like, it's an interesting time, I think, in Dallas right now.
In the middle of those things, man. He's always in the middle of that stuff.
Well, we need Kyrie to be healthy. So, as we're recording, I think he's going to miss his next game. So, being without Luka is hard, for any team. He's generational in terms of his talent. So we'll see what Kidd and company are able to do in the middle of the pack, fourth, I think right now in the Western Conference. Can they stay in that 4-6 range, stay above the playing line with Luka out? And that remains to be seen. But they've had a pretty decent record without Luka this year. But now they know he's going to be gone for at least, whatever it is, 12 games or so. Can PJ Washington and Najee Marshall and all those guys and Nestor Gafford and others kind of step up here? We'll see here in Dallas.
The only danger that I have about this is, these guys, you're going to ask them to step up. They're going to come out there. They're going to give you, these gaudy looking numbers, all of this effort. And, you're going to basically make them look like they're all-stars. And then when Luka comes back, when Kyrie comes back, when the team collectively comes back, then they revert back to that level of dependency. And that's something that I really am going to be interested to see how Jason Kidd navigates through that. He knows that he has two gems in Doncic and Irving. But the thing that you could clearly tell, especially what you saw in the finals last year and what you clearly see even this year, is I feel like there's way too much dependency on those two guys to execute and perform. And it leaves very little room to expand on the upside and potential for the guys that you have on this roster. Now, that doesn't mean that these guys are scrubs. I'm just saying, if you're asking them to step up, then you have got to figure out a way to make sure that when your stars come back, they help keep them at that elevated level. And it may mean you don't score 50 points, per game. If it's giving them opportunities for these other guys to maintain scoring 16, 17 points per game, getting those rebounds, this, that, and the third. Like, to me, this is a prime opportunity to see how Jason Kidd really navigates through that roster and really looks for those guys that he's going to be leaning on and depending on, because I guarantee you when those guys come back, they're not going to be able to lean on them to do all of that heavy lifting through the remainder of the season and then expect them to be ready for a run like they did last year, because the competition in the Western Conference is not the same competition that they dealt with to get through to the NBA Finals. You're going to have a much more there's going to be a much more daunting task, especially if at the end of the day, we're looking at a legit OKC Thunder team that is going to suffocate you to death with the amount of bodies that Doggenall can throw out at any given moment in time. So I'm really interested to see what Jason Kidd does with that.
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for Clay. He's wanted more opportunities, after he leaves Golden State. But I think, in the 7 games without Luka so far this year, Clay's been about 11 points a game and, 3 rebounds and 2 assists. So that's not going to cut it. And so we'll see if he's able to step up his production back to what his normal output is. But remember, he eats off of Luka being out there. So now Kyrie having to do that play creation for Clay, we'll see if that is something that Kyrie can handle that elevates Clay to a level, in that, high teens or low 20s range, especially over the next month or so.
Absolutely. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Coming up, we're going to do our New Year's resolutions. Cannot wait to get into that. But first, are you craving nonstop hoops action? NBA League Pass is your ticket to the ultimate basketball experience. Enjoy live games, on-demand replays, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content across a variety of devices. With NBA League Pass, you'll get more access to your favorite NBA content. The holiday season is here, and NBA League Pass is a perfect gift solution for every basketball fan. Stay up with the NBA like The Baseline does. Sign up now and type link.nba.com/LP19MG. That's link.nba.com/LP19MG. This is a limited time offer, the perfect opportunity to attract fans eager to catch every thrilling moment of the NBA season. More Baseline, Callie Warren Shaw. Don't go anywhere. We're back. Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast. Time now to do some New Year's resolutions. So, Shaw, let's get right into it. New Year's resolutions. You are going to start with the Atlantic, and then I will proceed with my division, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll do it like so.
Sounds good. So yeah, for our fans, listeners, we're gonna pick one team from each division. So there'll be 6 New Year's resolutions that we have here. I got 3, Cal's got 3. And I'm going to start with the defending champions. While you may not feel like everything should be rosy, right? They're the defending champs, shouldn't have too many issues. Let me tell you something. They are 7-6 over the last month, just a game over 500, and now are closer to 3rd and 4th than they are to 1st, as the Cavaliers continue to run away, with the Eastern Conference. This Celtics team is struggling. And while they have great point differential, they are still firing and jacking the 3, and they've been able to get reasonably decent wins with people in and out of the lineup as they were trying to employ the same strategies, but people are catching up to them. They've had some pretty bad losses. The Pacers have beaten them twice this year. The Hawks beat them before the Hawks actually got on their proverbial run that they're even on here now. And it just hasn't looked as amazing. So my New Year's resolution for Boston is less 3 and more D. And while I know that seems blasphemous in today's society, and it kind of goes into the get off my lawn narrative of like, oh, there's too many 3-point shooters, too much 3-point shooting in the NBA right now. And it is Boston's bread and butter. But they are literally dying by the 3 in a lot of these games. And what we saw them do to capture the NBA championship last year was when that shot wasn't falling, they did have a second. They did have a counter. Tatum specifically, he started going to the basket. And we're not really seeing that this year. While Peyton Pritchard is having an immense year and having a 6 man of the year type of year, most improved type of year overall, it's just so much 3-point shooting, and Boston has forgotten, at least especially over the last month, the ability to truly defend. Because when you miss those 3, it can create long rebounds, and you can get beat easily on fast breaks and so forth and so forth. And again, I don't want to mitigate or not pay attention to the fact that Porzingis is bulky and now he's injured again. Drew Holiday's been out of the lineup here for the last couple of games here with the shoulder impingement. And again, Tatum's been out, Brown's been out. They've done some mixing and matching here, but I think Missoula's got to figure out a way to counter their 3-point offense with better defense that might be able to force turnovers and get them out in transition, as opposed to jacking 50, 60 3-pointers a night. Something's got to change here. Otherwise, they're going to be like a 4 seed. And while it's easy to think like, yeah, well, they've done it before, we really shouldn't be worried about them, nobody was afraid of them. And I've been making that point year over year. And like no one is like, oh my God, the Celtics are going to be this dynasty. Everyone feels like they can't beat them, and they've been very vulnerable here in the last month. Again, it's just 7-6 and 5-5 in the last 10 games.
You bring up a lot of excellent points. I agree with you. Less 3 and more D. It's ironic though. They're still a top 10 defense. When you look at
Sure.
as far as opposing points allowed, and I think where this team has really suffered is their pace of play. They're like 21st. I don't think they nearly play with as deliberately, and maybe it's because of the propensity for them to shoot the 3 ball, Shaw. You know what I mean? And again, they're statistically all over the place because, to your point, if they're susceptible to shooting the 3 that much, then you would think that to still be a successful team, you're rebounding the basketball, giving yourself second chance opportunities, in order to shoot that 3. But I think it's initially the mindset of what type of shot you're giving yourself and giving your teammates, and what your teammates are ultimately doing in order to get those quality shots. So I do think that, to your point, the Celtics have to be very, very mindful, very careful with how they're approaching this. To your point, teams are not afraid of them. And I wouldn't expect this type of Celtics team to be the type of team that people should be afraid of from the standpoint that they're going to, bludgeon them to death with the 3. I think that they got to get back to being the vaunted defensive-minded basketball team that nobody wants to play. I think that's where they have taken that step backwards, is that they don't intimidate people with the versatility of what their defense has to offer. It seems like they've leaned a lot more into the fact that they know that their 3 ball ultimately can be their best defense, because once you bludgeon a team to death with so many 3s, that there's no way that a team is willing to come back. But we've seen this from even last year, Shaw, was one of the things that scared us about the Celtics. They're the type of team they can drop 80 points in 2 quarters, right? They can have an 80-point first half and then still wind up losing the damn basketball game. So that, and yet you can't have that if you're trying to establish a dynastic mentality.
That's a great point. Like, for as hot as they've been, they can be just as cold, and exactly. And it does meet in the middle when, in terms of their percentages, are actually 15th in 3-point percentage, but first in makes and first in attempts, right? But 15th in percentage. Think about that, for a second. Where they still shine is that they're not turning the ball over. So that's amazing. But they're also third in the league in 2-point percentage, like field goal attempts, right? Like, they shoot 57% when they do shoot 2s. So ergo, you'd figure like they might try to get to the line more and try to, shoot some of that mid range, because they have capable guys, but they just don't. They live outside. And, I think, again, it's costing them their defensive presence. And Porzingis not being there to be a rim defender hurts a lot of that defense as well, too. So I want to acknowledge that. But I like to see the more effort out there, especially stopping the ball in the perimeter, and enforcing more turnovers on their side, so they can get out in a transition and get some easy baskets.
Yeah, I hate to say that too, as well, Shaw, but they may need to make a move by the trade deadline. I think they need something.
I mean, they're locked. They're second apron locked.
I know they're second apron locked. But I'm just saying, like, they need another dimension to their front court presence. Al Horford, great guy. I'm not saying I'm hating on Horford, but what I'm saying is Horford is now a stretch the floor kind of player. No different than Hauser, no different than Cornette. You know what I'm saying? So now you're really relying on Porzingis, who, let's keep it a buck, right? Like, this was the dice that we rolled. If we can keep him healthy, we can keep him on the court, for a good period of time, he would help us. But you're only going to be able to keep him on the court for a certain period of time. So you're going to have to find something to help shore up a lot of what you're going to wind up missing by not having Porzingis on the basketball court. Quite frankly, look, Porzingis, as dynamic a player as he is, he has his limitations as well, too. The very same type of limitations that could have exposed the Celtics last year that they did well defensively. Again, we can get on a tangent about all of the things that the Celtics are not doing well, especially in the scope of this slump that they're in. But I think long-term, to your point, the resolution should be, a little less is more, right? Less should be more if you're the Boston Celtics. All right, let me get into my Southeast Division team. Shaw, I'm gonna help the Washington Wizards.
Oh,
all right,
love it.
The Wizards, if y'all can't win the lottery, then I think you should definitely lobby to get All-Star Weekend to the nation's capital, because the fans and nation's capital is starving for some star talent. You guys just ain't got it there. you ain't got it there, man. Last time Wizards shot anything, Agent Zero was bringing chrome into the locker room, bro. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Last time shot was heard, man, cats was bringing all kinds of stuff inside the arena except their game, okay? So I think if you are the NBA, and we were just talking about this earlier before, right? If you're the NBA, you want to make sure you're putting a positive spin, showing love all over the place. You know what I'm saying? Help out the Washington Wizards, and the Washington Wizards help out the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Lay out a great all-star weekend. Give people something to remember about them having some kind of basketball playing on the court outside of college basketball. Because it definitely isn't on their what they keep putting out there on a nightly basis as a professional basketball team. So I'd
love to see All-Star in the nation's capital. The unfortunate aspect for this resolution for their lobbying, it can't take place until 2028. So we don't know when that will be, as the Lakers are the LA has it.
So we were talking about flexing. They need to flex that.
Yeah, well, LA has it next year, Intuit Dome, all of that. So they're going to do that. And then it's the Phoenix a year after that. So with it being in the Bay this year, it's West 3 years in a row. And so the Washington community will have to wait till 2028. That's also the Olympic year. That's Olympic year as well too. So, we'll see. But I like that one. At least put your bid in early and see what happens.
Get in now, right? So start doing things early.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna. Why don't we stay in the East then? And you go again here because I think you have the Central Division team, right? So we're going to close up the East here. Who you got in the Central?
This is for the Detroit Pistons. Okay. Don't be afraid to buy, man. You know what I'm saying? Splurge a little bit. I know you've been down and out. I know times have been rough, but hey, man, the Detroit Lions are on the up and up. You know what I'm saying? Michigan just finished winning a college championship. You guys aren't too far behind. You know what I'm saying? You look like you're going to be competitive in the Central Division. Don't be afraid to go out there and splurge, man. You know what I'm saying? Go find your Tiffany's. Go find your Fenty Savage. You know what I'm saying? Go do that and actually give yourself a puncher's chance in that Central Division. Because if you really think about it, Shaw, this Detroit Pistons team actually is a good team. I do think that there's too many young bucks on that roster. You know what I'm saying? So maybe get yourself a legitimate guy that can really pair up, Tobias Harris, he's all right, but get you some legitimate, rough riders that'll roll with Cunningham and Beasley and those boys. Give them that confidence. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a DeMar DeRozan. I don't know. All I'm saying is don't be afraid to buy, man. Don't tippy toe no more. Stop getting on the selling thing. Go out there and splurge a little bit because you guys got talent and you really could be competitive even in this Eastern Conference situation right now that's going on. They have a chance.
I mean, they do have a chance. I do believe they have an uneven roster. So some consolidation would make a lot of sense for me. As we went into the league coming into the season, what are the Pistons, right? With Ivy and Fontecchio, and they brought in Harris and they traded for Tim Hardaway Jr., and Ron Holland's even trying to get some minutes. And obviously we talk about Ivy. They got to play Azier Thompson. There's just a lot of guys who get 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever. And it's not like a really, really amazing rotation. So a consolidation trade of some sort might make some sense for the Detroit Pistons, as they have been pretty good, especially with Cade Cunningham finally stepping into the spotlight in the way that we thought he could. So I'm going to, switch over to the West here now. And I'm going to actually, I guess, kind of borrow your situation here with Detroit and apply it to San Antonio. But it's not just buying for the sake of buying or whatever the case may be to try to scratch in. I watched Wemby do what Wemby did on Christmas Day. You talk about a performance, going into that, having a 10-block game and then doing what he did, scoring 40 in the Garden on Christmas. He's ready. And if you're the Spurs, you got to throw accelerant on this joint, and I'll be playful in it. But you got to find him a best friend forever right now, at least for the next 5 years. I think Chris Paul and Harrison Barnes are nice veteran guys and are obviously competent NBA players. Devin Vassell has the ability to be a nice player as well. But you talk about getting a star. They need another guy because Wemby's ready. Why wait? Why? There's no reason to wait. He already has you at 500 here now with this team. Imagine if you gave him another secondary star. And while I know he hasn't mentioned this team to be on his list. And maybe it would be obviously a very short window, maybe a 2 or 3 year window. But Jimmy Butler might make a lot of sense for San Antonio.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you were going with this, because I was gonna say, Shaw, I want you to imagine for me, this is Facebook, and you know how Facebook has got its algorithms and things of that nature. Like, who would you be sending as a new friend suggestion to Victor Wembanyama? Listen, the other day he was out in New York City. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, playing chess. I saw it. When you talk about that face of the league situation, like he's ready to do that and lead his team, to the proverbial promised land. I just don't think the Spurs team is that far off.
Shaw, listen, Victor Wembanyama is so desperate right now. You know what I'm saying? On that accelerant that you're talking about, he out there, you know what I'm saying, playing chess, but really was probably doing, he was trying to, check out the dudes out in Rutgers. He wants to see if he could pull he wants another Skip to my Lou. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? On that roster. Yeah. No disrespect.
I love that point, because like I said, they're not far off. They really aren't. And so I know the name of the show has been De'Aaron Fox, so somebody else who might be linked to San Antonio if they were so inclined. But I think they should and could sniff around the Jimmy Butler situation. And it would be, again, in terms of the competitiveness, and I know Jimmy comes with his side quests and warts and all of those things. But, if he's locked in and focused, maybe you can get him to do a 3 or 4 year with maybe team options, on that extension. Maybe that might make some sense for them too. Because I don't know if I love the Fox idea, but I'd be on board with at least giving Jimmy Butler a try, because I think they will have the same competitive spirit. So go ahead and get Wemby a BFF, man. That's my New Year's resolution for San Antonio.
Yeah, listen, if they figured out a way to get De'Aaron Fox, I wouldn't be opposed to that move, Shaw. I know you wouldn't be inclined on it, but I wouldn't be opposed to it if you still keep Chris Paul, because now De'Aaron Fox comes off the ball. I would be interested to see him as a 2 guard more so than him having to be the point guard, and seeing how much better off a player he can actually be than worrying about facilitating for other people when he's got somebody that can help feed him the basketball, get him right. So that takes that burden off of his shoulders. Also, as well, too, playing with a guy like Victor Wembanyama, very less for De'Aaron to worry about, because he knows that kid's capable of getting on his own. So, just saying. All right, Shaw, let's quickly move on to our final New Year's res. Is it my turn?
I guess. I'll go again and let you close out with the Pacific Division. Okay. So I'm going to go with the Northwest, and I'll make this one relatively quick. I feel like I've been beating this banjo for a little while here now. In Utah, while it was a nice story 3 years ago when Will Hardy took over, and Markkanen became like this all-star level player that people were like, oh, now he's this guy here in Utah that we thought he was going to be in Chicago. But I think I was at the G League Winter Showcase. I won't say names, but I heard some reporters who were in the know kind of talking, and they're just saying, listen, they don't think Walker Kessler is a Hardy guy. Like Hardy doesn't seem to really love him in general. And we already know that Clarkson and Sexton and Collins and all those guys, they're not long for this. Put up the foreclosure sign here in Utah, Danny Ainge. Stop trying to just like ramrod everybody with the trade and like try to overwin the trade. Like he wants to beat you to a pulp, and you can't do that with like some of these smaller deals. So listen, we are for sale. Everything must go. Clarkson, Sexton, Collins, Kessler, maybe even as well too. It's time in Utah, man. Like let's go ahead and truly reset this, and maybe you do that same situation with Markkanen as well. You have some picks that you got, from the Rudy Gobert trade as well. Obviously, the Donovan Mitchell trade. Like Utah is in a good situation. I think they need to reset the table here. I don't really love the mojo that's going on here right now in Utah, and I think it's definitely time for everybody must go.
All right, I like that one, Shaw. I do. I can appreciate that one, definitely. All right, so my final one is obviously from out of the Pacific Division. I think of, rest in power, rest in peace, my man Teddy Pendergrass. Love TKO, man. Love TKO. If you're the Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Warriors, I mean, you could pick any one of these teams, man, but I think you better let it go. Just let it go. Looks like another love TKO. You know what I mean? Like
melody.
You talked about it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, Shaw. Like, the reality is it's like this is just not gonna happen for you. And we were talking about this before. Do I see, or do you see the Lakers or the Warriors, even being in the play-in situation? I think they're still probably good enough to be playing, but they're nowhere near the ability for them to be championship contenders. Not with the way that the roster is structured, not with the way that the style of play that they're executing. And I just really think that, I can appreciate all of the old vets all hanging out in the Pacific Division like it's Yellowstone 1923. But damn it, man. We need either you link up these guys so they can show these young bucks how it's going to be done, right? Stop teasing us with this idea about, what would it be like if LeBron and Steph played, or, give us one more go of KD and Steph and all this other crap. Either do it or you don't. But if you are the Pacific Division, you will become a dying breed very quickly, because that seems like that is the place where all of our generational great players who maybe have lost a step or who are not in the perfect situation or perfect space, they go out there to play with those franchises to basically languish in the pasture and just die. It's just, and that's not fair.
So what exactly is the resolution? Like you do one for 4 teams all at one time?
Huh? Well, no, what I'm saying is freshen it up, man. Brighten it up. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, a little youth movement out there in the Northwest. You can do a little youth movement out there in the Pacific Division. You know what I'm saying? Spice it up a little bit. Move things around. Shake things up. I don't have to watch all of my favorite players out in the West Coast. You can move somebody back over to the East if you wanted to, or try to. But that'll never happen. It'll never happen.
I'm gonna put not necessarily icing on this cake here, but if I have one more resolution, I'm gonna sneak this in, and it would be for the Phoenix Suns and Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, go ahead, man. You can waive that no trade clause. Like you ain't doing nothing out there, brother. Like you can still probably play and put up some nice stats somewhere, but I don't think this Phoenix situation is going to go the way that Phoenix hopes and wants. Shout out to our guy Tyler McDowell from GI. He's always saying I'm picking on the Phoenix Suns, but this is the medicine that y'all need. If Beal will say, you know what, I will revoke my no trade clause and then go to the next destination, it opens up Phoenix for a wider range of possibilities. And I think Bradley Beal should go ahead and do that. But that's just me.
Hey, seems like it falls right in line with my resolution, right? It falls like right in there. Got it. Hey, Pacific Rim. There it is. You know what I'm saying? Pacific Rim. Anyway, man, great show this week. Obviously, we're excited for the upcoming new year. Any plans for you?
I'm chilling. I'm gonna keep it quiet here. I've been out and about. For our fans and listeners out there, Baseline is on the ground, and we'll be at a podcast conference here in a couple of weeks as well too. So New Year's, I'm going to keep it light, keep it cute, with the wife, and just kind of chill out. What about you, fam?
Oh yeah, I gotta keep it light. It's the busiest time of the year after it being the most wonderful time of the year, right? So, but yeah, man, looking forward for us linking up. Hopefully, we got some goodies in the in the chamber, ready to provide for our listeners, man. So it will be an exciting time. A lot of basketball. Remember MLK Day games going on as well too. So got a lot of stuff heading down, coming down the pike, man, and it's just an exciting, period as well too. Obviously, as well, we're still in the running, for Best Basketball Podcast, so that'll still be going on. So got a lot of stuff going on, man.
Well, the 2025, the Baseline is happy and healthy, and we're continuing to bring you all some great content. So make sure you tap in with us. Let us know how you feel. Let us know, your thoughts on New Year's resolutions for any of the teams we suggested or any teams that you'd like to give us some suggestions on. Hit us up in the comments, or hit us up on social media one way or the other, man. We'd love to interact, man. And we're wishing everybody healthy and happy New Year. And we'll definitely see y'all in 2025, man. We're keeping it pushing.
Yeah, man. Love eating, balling forever.
Yes, sir.
For the Baseline, Cali, Warshaw, we appreciate you guys. We do. And we'll catch up with you next time. Happy 2025, everybody.